Why do some countries drive on the left and some on the right? We'll answer that for you, and we'll quiz you on which countries are left-handed when it comes to traffic. Welcome to
Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig.
Hello, and if you're a new listener, welcome to the podcast. My name's Craig.
And my name's Reza.
And with nearly 50 years of teaching English between us, Reza and I are going to help you grow your grammar, vocalize your vocabulary, and perfect your pronunciation on this podcast. How are you, Reza?
I'm very well, Craig. I'm in good form. And you?
I'm very well too, and keen to get going this week with the podcast. So first we have an email from our friend Pilar Martinez, who lives in France. Would you like to read it?
Yeah.
In your best French accent.
I will. Bonjour, Pilar. Comment
allez-vous?
Comment allez-vous? No, that's very polite. Can we say comment vas-tu? The informal friend. We're friends, aren't we? So, I have a question. No, I'm not going to read like that. Besides, Pilar's Spanish. I have a little question, or I must say a curiosity. A curiosity, let's see. I'm watching these days an American TV series. I would probably say it the other way, Pilar. I would say I'm watching an American TV series these days, and they use a lot, you guys, even with women. They also use same here to say me too, or the same to me. I'm not sure I would say the same to me. Maybe the same for me, would you say, Craig?
The same as me?
Or the same as me? Depends on the situation. I don't think I would say to Pilar. The same as me, the same for me. Is it only used in American English or also in British English? Thanks, and don't change anything. Oh, thank you, Pilar.
It's good to hear from you as always, Pilar. It's interesting, isn't it? You guys, that is an Americanism. I would not, as a British speaker, use that.
I do sometimes.
You do?
I do. But I've noticed it might be slightly more common in Ireland than in Great Britain. I've noticed. Yeah. I know some British people use it, but it is more common in Ireland. I think in general, perhaps Irish speech is a bit more Americanized than Great British speech.
Okay, so you would say you guys. I would probably say you lot, or sometimes I hear with people also from Essex and the south of England, use lot with an S on the U. That's not grammatically correct. You wouldn't find that in a grammar book. The reason these expressions are used is because there is no plural form to address you. In Spanish, you have ustedes, if there is more than one person. What do you say in English? You have to say you. But how does the person know you're speaking to you, one person, or you, 4, 5, 6, 7 people? There's no way to make a difference between the plural and the singular for the second person.
Yeah, but in reality, what people do if there's going to be ambiguity is they kind of point or they look. So let's say there's a group of 4 people and they say, well, what do you want? Do I mean tú o vosotros? If I mean the plural, I'll probably look at everybody. I'll move my head and look at everyone's face and say, what do you want? And so they realize, oh, that's the plural you. But if I'm talking to one person, then I'll look at that person's face and say, what do you want? And the others will know it's a singular you. You kind of have to indicate, don't you, with your
That's true, but let me give you this situation. I phone you and I say to you, Reza, this Saturday I'm having a dinner party. Are you coming? Does that mean, are you only Reza coming? Or does that mean you and your partner? Are you both coming? Mm-hmm. I would have to say, are you both coming for you to know the invitation was for 2 people?
Yeah. And indeed, if you didn't clarify that, it could lead to an embarrassing situation, which occasionally does happen when people forget. Maybe you meant only me, because maybe it's only for men. Yeah. Maybe it's only me and Craig, and I misunderstood, and I bring my partner, and he thinks, I didn't know she was coming. It can happen sometimes, can't it?
What are you doing here? I didn't invite you. No. But there's another expression that's also fairly common in American English, and that's y'all, which means you all. There's an apostrophe. It's a contraction. Y apostrophe A double L. Y'all. Are you all coming to the party next week? Are you all happy with the drink you have? That wouldn't be in Belfast, would it? You wouldn't say that?
No. And I identify it particularly with the southern United States.
Yes.
You know, Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, not New York or the north, you know. And also cliches like cowboys, you know. How y'all doing? You know,
y'all doing?
By the way, we'll talk more about them some other day. We got a lot to say about cowboys, but we'll keep that. We'll keep that.
Oh, you're such a tease. Another question from Pilar is same here to mean me too. So yes, I would use that.
Same here.
You're good.
I would use it too.
For example, Reza and I walk into a bar. Sounds like a joke, but it isn't. We walk into a bar and Reza says to the barman, I'll have a beer. And I say, same here, which means me too. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's very, very common.
But Pilar, the other thing you asked about, the same to me, which I said didn't sound right. Imagine Craig's situation. He's asked for a beer, or I've asked for a beer, and the other one might say simply same here, or you might say the same for me. That would mean the same as same here. The same for me, not to, the same for me. But there's another expression, the same as me, which means like, oh, my situation is the same as yours. For example, I am divorced with 2 kids. I tell a person I've just met, and he says, oh, the same as me. I'm divorced with 2 kids. We're in the same situation. Mm-hmm. That's the same as me. Yeah. So the same for me means same here. But the same as me means I'm in the same situation as you.
Exactly. So thank you, Pilar, for your question and for continuing to listen to the podcast. Next, we have a voice message from Jair from Mexico City.
Hey guys, how is it going? This is Jair from Mexico City. First of all, I would like to say thank you for this amazing work that you have done all of these years. I've been listening to you for 3 months, every single day, and I have to say my listening skill it's got better, and it wouldn't happen without you. The last thing that I would like to say is give you some advice. Please trying to explain more things in Spanish because there's a lot of things that I cannot understand. I have many questions in my head. That's it. Bye bye. Have a nice day.
Thank you for your message, your wonderful message, Jair. It was very clear. Your pronunciation is excellent, and I loved the way you used correctly the present perfect continuous that some listeners have problems with. Jair said, I've been listening to you for 3 months. Absolutely perfect. Well done. Any comments, Reza?
Yes, Jair, thanks for your suggestion. However, I'm not sure how much Spanish we should use. As you know, we do sometimes use some Spanish. But after all, this podcast is to learn English, so we try to keep it to a minimum. Craig, what do you think about using more Spanish?
I agree with you, Reza. I can understand that maybe it's a little frustrating if you don't catch and understand every word. Remember, we do have the transcriptions available. If you want to join our Patreon program, you can follow everything we say on the transcriptions because the texts are available by email when you sign up for just $1 a month. But we prefer not to use too much Spanish, as Reza said, because we want you to understand and improve your listening. And also, we don't want to exclude listeners of other languages who are speaking, for example, Brazilian speakers. We have some French, some Italian speakers. Elisa, who's Finnish. So we have listeners from other countries.
Indian and Russian.
Indian and Russian, yeah. We don't want to exclude those people by speaking too much Spanish. And also as teachers, we think it's better for you if you're listening to the language that you want to improve. So just keep listening. With time, Jair, your listening will improve and you will hopefully agree with us that you don't need to listen to too much Spanish in order to understand what we're saying.
But Craig, what could you do if you really do need or want a teacher who will speak to you more in Spanish? Any suggestions?
Well, Jair, if you would like someone who gives you more Spanish support and explains grammar to you in Spanish that you can't quite understand, you can find a teacher, a paid teacher, on italki. Italki sponsors this podcast, and they have a website where you can find a teacher that will help you with your personal language needs. So, for example, you'd look for a Spanish speaking teacher or a teacher who's bilingual, who knows Spanish very well, and they will help you improve your English on a one-to-one basis. So face-to-face using Skype or similar software. You go to the website, italki, you register, you choose a teacher. You can watch the teacher's video introduction to see if you like the look of the teacher and their personality, and you can read reviews from previous students. Then you schedule your first lesson. You choose a date, you choose a time that's convenient for you. Then you connect. The lessons are usually on Skype, and you're talking to the teacher who is giving you an English lesson about what you need. So it's very personal, and it will help you improve your English very quickly. If you would like more information, italki are offering a $10 credit when you pay for your first lesson. So go to our podcast, inglespodcast.com/265, the show notes for this episode, 265. You'll see an italki banner, a picture. Click on that, and that will take you to the sign-up page so that you'll get your $10 credit. And Reza and I would like to thank italki for sponsoring this podcast.
So, as we were saying earlier, we have listeners from all over the world. We have an audio message now that has been sent by Alberto, who's in Australia.
Alberto, you remember Alberto. He's written and spoken before on the podcast. Alberto makes some comments about a recent episode we did, a recent podcast on integrating into British culture.
Hi Rosa, hi Greg, this is Alberto. I'm just calling you because here I'm listening to the podcast about the English culture and about Luigi, I think it was his name, that he was having a bit rough time there in UK. I'm in Australia, I'm in Spanish, as you can see with my accent. Just to let you know that just take it easy, mate. Just you need time, you need patience, you need to be happy and optimistic, because the way that you are is just unique, and as the other people are, you don't want to be as the other people. You need to be by yourself. My recommendation as well would be like start to use more should, could, might, may. Yeah, but we in Spanish culture, as you know, we don't use it as much, and I think it's important for English culture. And enjoy a soccer club or basketball club or whatever, and that you make a new friends there as well. I think those three pieces of advice that could be good for you. Enjoy yourself. Happy times. Yeah. See ya. Thank you.
Good day, mate, Alberto.
Good day, Alberto. Did you hear he said, take it easy, mate? That's a very Australian expression. Take it easy, mate. Relax, chill out. Take it easy, mate. Any comments?
Very good and very interesting message. And you brought up something that I hadn't really thought of. Yes, we do use modal verbs such as should, may, could, might, must, etc. quite a lot in English.
Yes.
More than the Spanish equivalents. And that's probably because we like being kind of indirect. So if something might happen or could or may or maybe you should do something, we're not saying do it or it's definitely going to happen. It's very British to say, well, it's possible. And I suppose that reflects our culture. We are more indirect in English-speaking cultures than most Spanish-speaking cultures, as far as I know.
And I agree 100% with all of Alberto's advice. You are unique, so you need to be yourself when you're living abroad, when you're mixing with English speakers. So embrace your Spanishness and your original personality and use that. That's part of who you are. So you should be proud of that, the fact that you are unique and different from the people around you. And another piece of advice that I also agree with is go to a club, make some friends. If you like soccer, if you like Australian rules football, whatever you like, go and do it. And with a club, that will also help you to integrate into the culture. For anyone who's interested in listening to the full episode we made on this, go to inglespodcast.com/263.
There's another sport which is very British. It's also very Australian. Well, another couple of sports. Cricket, very popular in Australia.
And Pakistan and India.
Pakistan and all those countries, and England as well. And also darts, very important for Australia and for Britain. Darts, los dardos, very, very popular, very important part of British pub culture. And Alberto, your message was fantastic. I'm not surprised you're living in an English-speaking country, but there was one tiny little grammatical mistake. You spoke about the English culture. No, the English culture, because you're talking about it in general. So take away the word, the English culture.
Always a pleasure to hear from you, Alberto. So thanks for sending in the message.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, mate. We have another message from another Alberto, but this time, this Alberto is living in Italy. So here's Alberto's voice message asking why British people drive on the left.
Hello, Craig. Hello, Reza. Here is Alberto from Milano, Italy. I listened to the episode about traffic and driving, and I have a question for you. Why in the UK people drive on the left side of the road, while in the other countries in Europe and all over the world, apart from some countries like India, for instance, people drive on the right side? Do you know if there is an historical reason or something else? Thank you very much, and bye-bye as usual.
Well, Alberto, as ever, it's a pleasure to hear from you. And what a clear message. I didn't hear any mistakes there. Really good pronunciation. What do you think, Craig?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and it's not a question that has a simple answer. Why do British people drive on the left? And why do some countries drive on the left and some countries drive on the right? Well, I think the main reason goes back to when people carried swords, espadas. So I think it's all about the scabbard, S-C-A-B-B-A-R-D, the scabbard. The scabbard is the little bag, or not little, the long bag for your sword. I think in Spanish it's vaina or funda, where the sword goes. Now, if this is on the left-hand side of the body, which it is if you're right-handed, then you need to cross your body with your right hand and take out your sword. So if you're riding your horse on the left of the road, you could easily see the person coming in the opposite direction if they have a sword in their hand. So if their right hand is empty, you're safe. But if it's not, maybe they want to fight you. So I think that's one of the main reasons, going back to when people rode horses and had swords and they were right-handed, so the sword and the scabbard, they kept it on the left-hand side of the body. Do you agree with that?
Yes, and that's why they rode on the left then. So the original side for traffic is the left, Alberto. So maybe your question shouldn't be, why do the British drive on the left and others on the right. Maybe a better question would be, why have other countries changed, whereas the United Kingdom hasn't changed? So basically, everybody originally drove or rode a horse on the left, and then other countries changed. So we are more original, we have to say.
Even if you go back in history, right back a long, long, long way in history to the ancient Greeks, the Egyptians, and the Romans, all of the troops, TROOPS, all of the soldiers from those armies marched on the left. And in the year 1300, there's a pope, Papa, a pope who I've never heard of. I don't know if you've heard of him, Reza. Boniface VIII. Pope Boniface VIII.
I've heard of the name Boniface. It's Bonifacio in Spanish.
okay.
Yeah? Boniface, yeah.
Well, apparently, he directed the pilgrims to keep left. So religious people making a pilgrimage to holy sites were directed by this pope to keep to the left side of the road.
But as has happened more than once in history, the French came along and shook things up.
It's
They
always
changed things.
always the French,
It's always
isn't
the
it,
French.
Pilar?
It's always the French. Pilar in France, you know what we are talking about. So following the French Revolution, they decided to change all the traffic to the right. So Napoleon, he was a big fan of traveling on the right because it was the French thing to do, different from the others. And as he went around Europe conquering lots of territories, he made them change to the right. So everywhere in Europe had been the left, but Napoleon started changing them to traveling. I can't say driving because there were no cars then, riding horses, etc., on the right.
But later, that included also Germany because Adolf Hitler, continued to spread this tradition across Europe as he took power. So as Hitler expanded, as Hitler conquered other countries like Czechoslovakia and Austria, those countries also were forced to drive and ride on the right.
Let's just check so far that you've understood us. You might be surprised. We're saying that countries like Czechoslovakia, Austria, etc., they drove, because cars had been invented, they drove in the 1920s, 30s on the left. Not long ago, in Czechoslovakia, they were driving on the left until the 1920s. And it was Hitler that changed them over, and they've stuck on the right. But it wasn't that long ago, they were on the left.
Now, in America, of course, America's been driving on the right since the British left, since colonial times. I think part of that is probably because they rejected British customs. So as soon as they kicked out or removed the British from North America, they said, okay, let's change now. Let's change to the right and get rid of these British customs. But also there were lots of wagons in America. Wagons, carts, C-A-R-T-S, drawn or pulled by horses. So the drivers sat on the left of their wagon, or they pulled or led the horses on foot on the left side, because this way it's much easier to see traffic coming in the opposite direction, and there's less possibility that you would fall off the road or fall into a ditch because you could see the wheel of the wagon better. The wheel of the wagon and the wheel of the cart. So these practical reasons as well as political made America drive on the right.
The last country in Europe to change was as late as 1967.
Wow. I was alive
1967.
then. I was
Yeah.
born then.
Sweden drove on the left until 1967. Yeah, they'd been officially driving on the left from 1734. And in 1967, they changed to the right. They were the last people in Europe to officially change. And that must have been such a nightmare for car owners because, of course, most of the cars, 90% of cars, were designed to be driven on the left-hand side of the road. So they were what we call left-hand drive cars. That means that the steering wheel,
Was on the right.
el volante, was on the right.
Yeah.
Designed to be driven on the left. So people, the drivers were in the wrong place to drive when suddenly the law was changed because they had cars designed for the left and suddenly they had to start driving on the right.
Let's clarify that just in case you missed that. So if the driving wheel, volante, as Reza said, the driving wheel is on the right of the car, you're probably driving on the left-hand side of the road. And in Spain, for example, the steering wheel is on the left, so you're driving on the right-hand side of the road.
Oh, sorry, I was not quite accurate with my information. Sweden were not the last to change. I forgot about that island away in the middle of the Atlantic. Iceland, sorry, our Icelandic European friends. They changed a year later, so they were 1968. Sorry, Iceland.
Let's have a quick test to see what you know and what Reza knows about countries driving on the left or right. So Reza, I'm going to say a country. I'd like you to leave a short pause for you, yes, you, I'm talking to you, the listener, to say left or right. So on what side of the road do the people in these countries drive on? Number one, easy for you, Ireland.
I'm from Ireland. He's left.
Okay, did you get that? Let's go to number two, India.
Left. Ex-British colonies, like Ireland, tends to be left.
Okay, let's move to a different part of the world. Next country, Thailand.
I don't know why, but I know it's the left.
You're right. Yeah, it's very
I'm right.
good.
Did you hear Craig's joke? He said you're right.
I don't mean you're right on the road. I mean, yeah, you're right. You're correct. I should
Remember,
say.
right means correct as well. Do you know why? I've no idea why. I just happen to know it is. I don't know why I know, but I know.
I don't know why either.
Because Thailand is surrounded by countries which drive on the right.
That's correct. The next one, Pakistan.
Another ex-British colony, left.
Correct.
Although I do know that Pakistan were thinking about changing to the right. They nearly did it, but at the last minute they changed their mind and they kept with the left.
Okay. Jamaica.
Jamaica, another British colony, ex-colony, the left.
Correct. Difficult one next, I think. Sri Lanka.
Okay. Another colony, I presume it's the left, is it?
Yes, correct. 100% so far. You're doing great. Next one, South Africa.
Again, left, ex-British colony, I suppose.
Yeah, I think we're noticing a pattern here. We're noticing something that repeats, a definite pattern. Kenya.
Left.
Yep. Hong Kong.
Ooh, that's a good one.
In the news at the moment.
Because China, mainland China, the big part of China, not the island, is definitely right. But I think Hong Kong is left.
You're right. I mean, you're correct.
And again, I presume it's because it was a British colony.
Yeah, that's right. It changed in 1997, I think. At the moment, people in Hong Kong still drive on the left. That may change in the future. Australia, where Alberto's listening from.
As Alberto knows, I hope it's the left.
Yeah, I hope you know that, Alberto, that you drive on the left. Another ex-British colony. Grenada.
Grenada, or some people also say Grenada. I've heard both pronunciations. I think that's probably the left.
Yes.
Yeah. Another colony. Yeah.
Still 100%, Reza. Fantastic. Japan. Aha.
Well, Japan, I've never been there, but I'm interested in Japanese culture, so I know that it's the left. It always has been. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. It hasn't always been. I got so interested in Alberto's question that I did a Google search, and I discovered, Craig, did you know that Japan for a short while was obliged to drive on the right?
Yes.
Did you hear
Yes,
about
they historically they drove on the left before 1945. I'm wondering if it's because of the samurai and their swords, but the Japanese traditionally drove on the left. What happened in 1945 then?
The end of the Second World War. And because the Americans beat the Japanese and had occupied the islands, they obliged them, very bad idea, they obliged them to change to the right. something which the Japanese did not like at all.
So did they return to the left?
Eventually, but I think it was about another 20 years, if I remember what I read on internet, before they changed back to the left.
It was 1978 that they changed back to the left. So you're right when you're correct when you say that Japan now drive on the left.
Craig was testing me there because he made up those questions, but I've made up a couple for him. Let's see if he gets mine.
Okay, go ahead.
The first one for you is Gibraltar.
Ooh. I'm going to say left.
No.
Really?
It's right.
Really?
Gibraltar is right.
Yeah, I've got 0 out of 1 and you got all yours correct. Did you notice that all mine were on the left though?
Yes.
You did. Okay.
Very British.
So you're really testing me. What's the next one?
So bear that in mind, Gibraltar, for the moment, a British colony, although that's a tricky question with Spanish people, but it is a British colony, but they drive on the right. They drive on the right. Okay, here's an ex-colony, Nigeria.
I think you might be trying to trick me here. I'm going to say right.
You're right. Nigeria is the right. So that's curious because Craig asked me about Kenya, an ex-colony very near Nigeria, and it's the left. Yet Nigeria changed to the right for some reason.
By themselves, they just decided to change.
Yep, after the British left.
What's the next one?
The next one, another colony, this time in South America. Yes, there were British colonies in South America too, not only Spanish ones. Guyana.
Well, I know there's a French Guyana, so I'm thinking because of the French influence, I'm going to say right.
It's left.
Oh, you're a slippery fellow. You're a tricky fellow.
So I don't know if even all South American listeners knew this. There is a place in South America where they drive on the left.
Well, I never.
I'll tell you better than that. There's another country in South America which is not an ex-British colony. It's not, and they drive on the left.
Which country?
Go on, guess. You've got to be a statistics geek like me to get this one.
I have no idea.
Suriname.
I would never have guessed that. Suriname, never. And where is that?
You see what you've done, Alberto? You've got me on an internet search.
You've woken up a geek.
Suriname is a country in South America which was a Dutch colony. Holland, Dutch colony. Dutch means from Holland.
Can you describe its flag?
No, you've got me there. And I should. Ooh.
That's the first thing you're going to be doing when you get home.
I will. I'm going to Google it immediately because I love flags and capitals and all that. And now Alberto's got me hooked on which side they drive on. But hold on. Don't the Dutch people in Holland, they drive on the right?
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. But again, they were forced to change by Napoleon. Mm-hmm. And then the Germans reinforced that. But they had driven on the left. So what happened was the Dutch had driven on the left or ridden horses at the time when they colonized Suriname. So they also started to drive or ride on the left. Then the Dutch were forced to change to the right. But Suriname, the Dutch colony, didn't bother to change. It just continued on the left. Mm-hmm. Weird, eh?
Yeah. Do you have any more for me?
Yes. Mayon Marr, formerly known as Burma.
Mayon Marr, Burma. I've actually been there, so I should know this.
You know it's an ex-British colony then?
I know it's an ex-British colony, but I think they drive on the right.
You're right.
Yeah.
Now, here's the million-dollar question. They used to drive on the left, but they changed to the right. In, I think, about 1970-something, I read. Why?
Was there a regime change? The dictator? No.
Well, there was a dictator, but he was in the middle of the dictatorship. It wasn't a change.
So what's the reason?
The answer is nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
Is the correct answer. It was never stated why. And the dictator and his wife were very capricious. And they just fancied the right. And being a dictator, the general didn't have to tell anybody why. He just changed. And to this day, nobody knows why, but they changed.
Just woke up one morning and said, hey, let's change all the cars around.
They changed. There are theories Apparently, the general dictators, he was an army man, the dictator was a general. Apparently, his wife was really into astrology. And she got this feeling from looking at the stars that it will be better for the Burmese people to change to the right. That's just a theory. And he might have done it because his wife fancied it. But nobody really knows.
Very strange. Because it's very expensive, isn't it? You have to change all the road signs. You have to change all the directions and arrows. And the cars, you have to change the car's steering wheel from the left to the right. So, or the right to the left. So it's complicated to change.
So they had the same experience of Sweden. Everybody had right-hand drive cars. In other words, like the cars we have in the UK, the steering wheel is on the right, ready to drive on the left. That's what they had in Burma. So they had the trouble with the cars. But that was the 1970s. Now there's no problem, right? Wrong. In Burma, the majority of cars today are still right-hand drive.
Yeah, doesn't surprise me.
Even though they drive on the right. So they're buying cars which would be suitable for the UK, but they're driving in Burma. Why? Because they're cheap, because the cheapest cars they can get are from Japan. And in Japan, they drive on the left. So in Burma still today, most cars are really prepared for driving on the left, but they drive on the right. Isn't that brilliant, trivial nonsense? I love that.
Unbelievable. What about Spain, Reza? What happens in Spain? I know that in Spain, people drive on the right, but is there any difference across regions?
Not today, but I did discover in my my internet surfing that in Spain, they used to drive or ride on different sides, and it depended on the region. For example, right up to the 1930s, it was on the left in Madrid and on the right in Barcelona. I'll repeat that.
Really?
In Madrid, they drove on the left, and in Barcelona on the right until the 1930s.
Did that have any political meaning? That were people voting towards the left in politics in Madrid and towards the right in Barcelona?
Not politics, no. No, not at all. Isn't it
Curious.
Bizarre?
Very interesting. Reza, you've driven on the left in Belfast and then on the right in other various countries. Do you have any problems when you have to change? For example, if you go back and you use a car in the UK, do you forget things on the road?
Occasionally for the first hour or so until I get readapted, you know. Luckily, I've never done anything dangerous, but I've like arrived at a roundabout, and instead of turning off to the left as I should in the United Kingdom, I've been tempted to go right. Like in Spain, I remember, oh God, no, not right. I got to go left.
I've done that. I actually went around the roundabout the wrong way in the UK. I was driving back from the airport. I just landed. I rented a car. And as I was driving maybe an hour after picking up the car, collecting the car, I got to a roundabout and I went the wrong way around. Luckily, there was no traffic. So I was lucky I didn't get caught. But yeah, I just didn't think. It was an automatic reflex to go the wrong way or the right way around the roundabout. Very strange. And now it's your turn to practice your English. Do you have a question for us or a topic that you would like us to discuss on a future episode? We'd love to hear from you. So please send us your voice messages. That is our preferred method of communication. You can do that using our free service SpeakPipe. That's speakpipe.com/English podcast. Remember, you only have 90 seconds for your message on SpeakPipe.
Or if you'd prefer to write, you could write to craig@inglespodcast.com
or reza@belfastreza@gmail.com. And why not visit our online store if you're thinking of downloading a course, maybe an audio course to listen to while you're driving on the right or the left. You can find our downloadable courses at store.mentioningles.net.
And finally, as ever, thank you to all our patrons. They're the people who donate money to us on the Patreon program. You can do it for as little as $1 per month. And for doing that, you'll get instant access to recent transcriptions of the audio. As ever, transcribed by Angelica. Thanks, Angelica. If you're interested in that, have a look at Patreon. That's Patreon, patreon.com/English podcast.
We'd like to welcome our new Patreon supporters who have joined us this month. Many thanks to Geraldine Islas. Hello and welcome, and thank you. Ramon Menocal, Esteban, thank you very much. And special thanks to Rafael. Thank you, Rafael, very much for your generosity. So thank you to all four of you and to everybody who's sponsoring the podcast on Patreon.
On next week's episode, we've got ellipsis. In other words, leaving stuff out.
You left something out there, didn't you? You ellipsed something. Thank you so much for listening to us this week. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you again next week. Until then, it's goodbye from Reza.
And goodbye from Craig.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.